Hey, Leo Dreger here. I want to talk to you about some really important skills. Anybody that's going to be involved in the information assurance field is going to need the skill of log file analysis. And there's a lot to talk about in this subject. Many of us are familiar with the four-step model of access control, which is identification, authentication, authorization, and accounting. Well, in steps 1 and 2, identify yourself in some way and then prove it in step 2. That's done by more of a proactive, you set those controls in place. And then authorization, what can the user do? That needs to be looked at as its own kind of niche field as well. Just controlling who has access to what. That's all of the concept of least privilege, rotation of duties, split knowledge, all of those principles like that fall into the category. But step 4, auditing, logging, and accounting to make people accountable is its own step altogether. And now we're kind of in that 4th step. So it's really defensively the security person analyzing all of the logs and events on a computer system and looking for anomalies, looking for things that are supposed to be the way that you set them, and also false positives. Hey, this is appearing, but it's not supposed to be, and things like that. So while you can do this on a computer or a network, really doesn't matter at this point because it's still from the point of view or the vantage point of auditing. Okay, anybody who's interested in certifications like CISA from ISACA or any auditor-oriented certification or anybody in information assurance that actually has a technical hands-on systems, this video is for you. So the default mechanisms that Windows has in place here, if we just go to Computer and select Manage, we're already given an interface. Now, this is fine if you have to go look at one particular computer, but oftentimes we need to go well beyond that and look at groups of computers or whole enterprises. It could be 50 computers, it could be 1,000, it could be in the larger enterprise sense, 10,000, 100,000, 300,000. But the strategy changes the more computers that you get involved. Like if you have 100,000 users and you need to correlate 100,000 computers and all of the event logs that they produce, you're going to have a different strategy than just onesies and twosies at a time. So Windows, let's go over the event viewer on Windows. Realistically, you can spend time in here in the application log, and you have to use a Microsoft Management Console. So I'll just do the quick intro here from the traditional Windows, and then I'll show you how we can correlate that or scale that in an event viewing application. So we'll just grab something like the security event because that's what most of us are interested in. But anybody that has to administer a system, they would be interested in application or system events versus just general security would be Windows security events. So you have the different types of policies that you can set. Those are all going to be set and viewable here. So if you set, for example, log on and log off policies, did you audit that successfully or not? Well, you can sort by audit success or audit failure. Or you can scroll down to the bottom of the top. Here we go. Here we got some failures here to show a compare and contrast. Also, you're going to have generic date and timestamp stuff. If you open this stuff up, this is all viewable in the properties. We'll get to that in a second, though. The source, in this case, they're all going to come from the same source, Microsoft Windows systems. The event IDs in themselves, these are all the things that when they get fired off and triggered, you're going to need to go research these and get familiar with some of the more common ones, like 4624 is a log-on events, or 4672 a special log-on events. You can, of course, look at on the internet and find the details of what these actually mean. I'm not going to cover what is a special logon event versus a logon event here in this video, but simply show you that you do have an interface for this to actually view Windows event logs. So if we just click on a properties, we get some general information. You can try looking here. This is basically the code, and this may or may not make sense to you. If you've done this before, it probably makes sense. But I like to compare it to automobiles, right? When your engine light comes on in your cars, sometimes you know what the engine light is and you can fix it, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you got to take it to someone who knows more about that than you. No different here. Some of these you may know, some of these you may not. Okay, so it comes from the security log. That's simply the log over here. Source, Microsoft Windows Security. The actual event ID, which I said is critical and worth knowing a dozen or so of the most popular ones. You have informational errors and warnings. These are the different types. So you can actually set queries based on just give me information, just give me warnings, and just give me errors. And we could cover that in a different video. Users, more information. You may or may not find this. I mean, this will link you to the Windows page. It may or may not help. Google searches typically are what I typically go to first. Then the time and date stamp, which is why it's critical, absolutely critical to have synchronized time on a network. The task category of that event, any keywords like successes or failures, and then the computer. And ultimately, you'd like to tie this back to a user, a computer or a user that actually tripped the event. You can also go to details here. This is more XML style information. You can use it for your documentation, probably just to copy and paste it, but sometimes in here you can just double click, right click, and copy, and Google just that specific reference. Okay. All right, so that's the overview of basically how Windows has it set up. Now let's go on to more enterprise mode and look at an event correlation tool. This is Event Log Explorer, and I have it connected to the same computer system. So just to be consistent, we'll go down here to security, and you can just open up a new tab here. And relatively, at the 50,000 foot view, it looks pretty much, for all intents and purposes, just like Windows Event Viewer. Now, the advantage here is clearly in this tree window, because if you can, you got 5,000 computers and you got a decent naming convention, you can go search for, connect to that remote computer, and then view the logs that were generated by that computer in itself. Now, what would be really advanced is to kind of show how one system or one event on one system gets correlated to another event or on another system. But we're just going to stick right here on one computer system for a little bit. All right, you have the details, properties of it. This is you can see a little bit better of a format to read in. And then also you have a data field, and you have some filtering utilities down here. I typically just leave something like this. Just give me the general description. And if you want to correlate stuff on a particular system, and I've selected this event right here, and you can see we've got all these quick filters. So filter by time. So if you have, again, synchronized time, you could just say, show me all of the events that happened in that minute that are equal to or less than or greater than or greater than or equal to, right? There's a little bit of logic there. Or you can build your own custom filter. You can copy this stuff to a clipboard. You can clear the event log, which that would be suspicious, because why would you clear them? And the event properties. So if you look at the event properties here, you can see it's very much the same or similar to what you would find on a Windows system. This is why I always argue that it doesn't matter to me if it's a Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows NT 4.0, 2000, 2003, 2008, Ubuntu, Linux, Kali. I don't really care what computer generated, because I'm looking at this very much from a generic standpoint. And I could just simply scroll through the event logs using, event viewer property like this. It's very similar in Windows, by the way. You also can look things up in an event ID database. So if you do something like this, they take you to their own eventid.net, and then you can search for, the specific, details of the event, and hopefully get some really good detailed information before you have to go searching the end of the internet to find it. Also want to tie in one of my favorite books. It's Know Your Enemy by and you can find this on Amazon. Now what this, not that one. It's not that one. Let's see. Not that one either. 0 for 2. And then we're not looking for Soviet Union. We're looking for Honey Pot or the Honey Net Project. Okay, learning security threats. All right, so know your enemy, learning about security threats. What this book does is it effectively teaches you how to evaluate log files by looking at logs and trying to find the needle in the stack of needles. So this is a great desk reference book, and it goes anywhere from 35 to you can get a used copy from $5 or so. But give this a read. It's about 800 pages, and it will teach you how to evaluate the event logs. Now, I've got no affiliation with this project, so it's only from my personal experience that I say this is a great book to learn how to think like a hacker on one side offensively, and then defensively, how do you detect that through audit file and audit log analysis, okay, which is this side over here. All right, so the book is kind of the front end. This is kind of the back end from the security administrator's role here and how you would try to tie events together. All right, and so really the only difference here is now you kind of get the basics of event log analysis is now realistically to scale that and correlate that, and that ties into the fields of data mining and data warehouse, which is putting it all in its own unique vault, which then gets normalized to reduce everything down to one unique version of everything, basically. And then data mining, which is to find the trend and the pattern. But you can't get to those utilities until you start learning how to look at this through enterprise or custom tools to learn how to go in and correlate things like computer to IP address to MAC addresses to users, and then scale that up to 300,000 computers. Okay. So that's the overview of event log analysis, and there's really no difference here other than scaling that up. And we'll talk about that consistently throughout these log file analysis videos. My name is Leo Drager. Thanks for watching, and be sure to participate and communicate in the discussion boards. And also, you may want to think about getting a badge after you complete all of these classes because they make great documentation for your continuing professional education and credits and units and things like that. My name is Leo Drager. Thanks for watching.